Have you ever felt like something's holding you back in your spiritual growth, but you can't quite put your finger on it? It's like there's an invisible wall stopping you from moving forward. Well, I've got news for you. That wall might just be your spiritual blind spot. And guess what? We all have them. That's right. Even the most enlightened among us have areas where we can't see clearly. But here's the kicker. These blind spots are often the very things keeping us from reaching our full spiritual potential. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly is a spiritual blind spot? Think of it like the blind spot in your car. When you're driving, there's that sneaky little area where you can't see other vehicles in your mirrors. It's dangerous because you don't know what you're missing. Well, spiritual blind spots work the same way. They're the parts of ourselves, our beliefs, or our behaviors that we just can't see. And just like on the road, these unseen areas can lead to some pretty big crashes in our spiritual journey. The thing about spiritual blind spots is that they're tricky. They hide in plain sight, disguising themselves as truths we hold dear or habits we think are harmless. Maybe it's the way you always judge others without realizing it, or how you cling to old hurts even when you think you've let them go. These blind spots can show up in all sorts of ways, and they're different for everyone. But one thing's for sure. They're holding you back from experiencing the full richness of your spiritual life. Now, I know what you're thinking. If I can't see my blind spots, how am I supposed to do anything about them? Well, that's where I come in. You see, I didn't just decide to make this video out of the blue. I felt a strong pull, a whisper from the universe, if you will, guiding me to share this message with you. It's like the spirit world knew you needed to hear this, and I'm just the messenger. Let me tell you, when spirit speaks, it's not always in a booming voice from the heavens. Sometimes it's a gentle nudge, a persistent thought, or a series of coincidences that just can't be ignored. For me, it started with a dream. I kept seeing a mirror, but every time I looked into it, there was a part of my reflection that was blurred out. At first, I brushed it off as just a weird dream. But then, I started noticing how often the topic of self-awareness and hidden truths came up in my conversations with others. It was like the universe was trying to tell me something, and boy, was it persistent. Books would fall open to pages talking about self-discovery. I'd overhear strangers on the bus discussing their aha moments. Even my morning coffee seemed to be sending me messages with the foam-forming shapes that looked suspiciously like eyes. Yeah, I know, it sounds a bit out there. But when you're tuned into the spiritual frequency, you start to see signs everywhere. And then it hit me. This wasn't just about me. The spirit world was using me as a channel to reach out to you, yes, you, watching this video right now. It's no coincidence that you stumbled upon this message. Whether you clicked on it out of curiosity or it randomly popped up in your feed, trust me, you were meant to hear this. The universe has a funny way of putting the right information in front of us exactly when we need it most. So here I am, acting as your spiritual GPS. You know how your navigation system recalculates when you've taken a wrong turn? Well, consider me your spiritual recalculator. I'm here to help you identify those tricky blind spots that have been sending you down the wrong paths or keeping you stuck in spiritual traffic jams. But don't worry. I'm not here to judge or preach. Think of me more as a friendly guide, someone who's been down these roads before and wants to help you avoid the potholes. Now you might be wondering, why should I trust you? And that's a fair question. I'm not claiming to be some all-knowing guru or spiritual master. Far from it. I'm just someone who's done a lot of work on myself, made plenty of mistakes along the way, and learned a thing or two about spotting those sneaky blind spots. And the biggest lesson I've learned? We all need a little help sometimes. Even the most self-aware among us can benefit from an outside perspective. That's why I'm so passionate about sharing this message with you. I've seen firsthand how transformative it can be when we finally shine a light on those hidden corners of ourselves. It's like cleaning a dusty old window. Suddenly everything looks clearer and brighter. And let me tell you, the view from the other side of that clean window, it's pretty spectacular. Now let's talk about why these blind spots are such a big deal. Imagine you're on a hike, trying to reach a beautiful mountaintop. You've got your map, your compass, and you're all set for the journey. But what you don't know is that there's a huge boulder blocking the path just around the corner. You can't see it yet, but it's there, waiting to stop you in your tracks. That's what a spiritual blind spot does. It's the unseen obstacle that keeps you from reaching your destination. These blind spots can show up in all sorts of sneaky ways. Maybe you think you're being kind and helpful, but you're actually overstepping boundaries and not letting others grow. Or perhaps you believe you're open-minded, but you shut down every time someone challenges your beliefs. It could even be something as simple as thinking you're a great listener, when really you're just waiting for your turn to speak. The tricky part is, we often don't even realize these blind spots exist. We go about our lives wondering why we keep hitting the same walls or falling into the same patterns. It's frustrating, right? You feel like you're doing everything right, following all the spiritual practices, reading all the self-help books, but somehow you're still not making the progress you want. Well, I've got news for you. It's probably not because you're doing anything wrong. It's just that you can't see the whole picture. Here's the thing about blind spots. They don't just affect you. They ripple out into every area of your life, touching your relationships, your work, and even your health. When you're operating with these unseen blocks, it's like trying to drive with one eye closed. Sure, you might be able to get around, but you're missing a whole lot of information, and you're putting yourself and others at risk. Let me give you an example. Say you have a blind spot around vulnerability. You think being strong means never showing weakness, so you keep all your emotions bottled up inside. Sounds good in theory, right? But what's really happening is you're cutting yourself off from deep, meaningful connections with others. Your relationships suffer because people can't get close to the real you. You might even start to feel lonely and isolated, all because of this blind spot you didn't even know you had. Or maybe your blind spot is around control. You think you need to manage every little detail of your life to feel safe. But in reality, this need for control is stressing you out, straining your relationships, and keeping you from going with the flow of life. You're so busy trying to steer the ship that you're missing out on the beauty of the journey. Now, I know all of this might sound a bit heavy. Facing our blind spots isn't always easy. It can be uncomfortable, even a little scary. But here's the good news. Once you start to uncover these hidden areas, amazing things start to happen. It's like cleaning out a cluttered room. At first, It might look messier as you pull everything out. But once you clear away what you don't need, you're left with a space that feels open, fresh, and full of possibilities. When you start to address your blind spots, you open yourself up to a whole new level of spiritual growth. Suddenly, those stubborn patterns that have been holding you back start to dissolve. You find yourself handling situations with more grace and ease. Your relationships deepen, your intuition sharpens, and you start to feel more aligned with your true purpose. It's like you've been seeing the world in black and white, and suddenly someone hands you a pair of color glasses. Everything becomes richer, more vibrant. You start to notice the beauty in things you used to overlook. You become more present, more aware, more alive. And the best part? This growth doesn't just benefit you. As you become more conscious and aware, you naturally start to have a positive impact on those around you. Here's something to think about. Your spiritual growth isn't just about you. We're all connected, part of this big, beautiful cosmic dance. When you work on yourself, when you shine a light on your blind spots and start to heal, you're contributing to the healing of the whole world. It's like dropping a pebble in a pond. The ripples spread out, touching everything around them. Think about it. When you become more aware and start to change your patterns, it affects everyone you interact with. You become more patient with your family, more understanding with your friends, more compassionate with strangers. Your energy shifts, and people can feel it. You start to inspire others without even trying, just by being your authentic, evolving self. And it goes even deeper than that. On a spiritual level, as you raise your consciousness, you're contributing to the collective consciousness of humanity. You're adding your light to the world, helping to tip the scales towards more love, more understanding, more unity. It might seem small, but trust me, it matters. Every bit of growth, every blind spot uncovered, every old pattern released, it all adds up. So are you ready to embark on this journey of self-discovery? Are you willing to look at those parts of yourself that you've been avoiding? It takes courage, I won't lie. But the rewards are immeasurable. And remember, you're not alone in this. We're all on this path together, stumbling, learning, growing. In the next part of this video, we're going to dive into some practical ways to start identifying your blind spots. I'll share some signs to look out for and give you a simple exercise that can be incredibly revealing. But for now, I want you to just sit with this idea. Think about areas in your life where you feel stuck or where the same issues keep coming up. These could be clues pointing to your blind spots. Remember, there's no judgment here. We all have blind spots, and they're not a sign of failure or weakness. They're just part of being human. The fact that you're here, listening to this, shows that you're ready to grow, to evolve, to become more of who you truly are. And that, my friend, is something to be celebrated. So take a deep breath. Feel the potential for change stirring within you. Trust that you have everything you need to face whatever comes up. You are stronger, wiser, and more capable than you know. And with each blind spot you uncover, you'll be one step closer to living your most authentic, fulfilling life. As we wrap up this first part of our journey together, I want to leave you with a thought. Awareness is like a superpower. It's the key that unlocks every door on your spiritual path. Just by being here, Just by being willing to look at yourself honestly, you're already activating this power. You're shining a light into those dark corners, and that light will only grow stronger. In the coming sections, we're going to explore some practical tools and techniques to help you on this journey. But for now, I invite you to simply be open. Be curious about yourself. Wonder about the parts of you that you might not see clearly yet. And most importantly, be kind to yourself in this process. Remember, we're not trying to fix anything. We're just expanding our awareness, growing our understanding of who we are. You've already taken the first step by tuning into this message. Trust that inner wisdom that led you here. It knows what you need, even if your conscious mind isn't quite sure yet. So stay with me, keep your heart and mind open, and get ready to embark on a journey of self-discovery that could change everything. Your blind spots are waiting to be uncovered, and a whole new world of spiritual growth is just around the corner. Are you ready to see it? Sure, I'll continue with the next 3 sections of the outline in the same style and depth. Here's the continuation of the script. Now that we've talked about what spiritual blind spots are and why they matter, let's get into the nitty-gritty. How do you know if you've got a blind spot? Well, it's not always easy to spot them. That's why they're called blind spots after all. But there are some signs you can look out for, little clues that might indicate there's something you're not seeing clearly. First up, let's talk about patterns. You know those situations that seem to keep popping up in your life over and over again? Maybe it's always ending up in relationships with emotionally unavailable people, or constantly feeling like you're being taken advantage of at work. If you find yourself saying, "Why does this always happen to me?" chances are you've stumbled upon a blind spot. These recurring patterns are like big, flashing neon signs pointing to areas where you might need to take a closer look. Another sign to watch out for is strong emotional reactions. We all have our triggers, those things that push our buttons and send us from 0 to 100 in no time flat. But if you find yourself getting disproportionately upset about certain things, especially if your reaction seems bigger than the situation calls for, that's a clue. It's like your emotions are trying to get your attention, waving their arms and saying, "Hey, there's something here you need to see." Defensiveness is another big red flag when it comes to blind spots. If you find yourself getting really defensive when someone points out a certain behavior or suggests you might be wrong about something, pay attention. That knee-jerk, "No, you're wrong," reaction often indicates there's something you're not willing or able to see about yourself. It's like your ego is throwing up a shield, trying to protect you from a truth that might be uncomfortable. Here's another sign to look out for. Do you often find yourself blaming others for your problems or unhappiness? If your go-to response when things go wrong is to point the finger at someone else, it might be time to take a step back and look in the mirror. Blind spots love to hide behind blame because it's so much easier to see faults in others than in ourselves. And let's not forget about those areas of your life where you feel stuck. Maybe you've been trying to make a change for years, but somehow you never quite get there. Or perhaps there's a goal you've been working towards, but it always seems just out of reach. These stuck points can be big indicators of blind spots. It's like you're trying to push forward, but there's an invisible force holding you back. And that force might just be something you're not seeing about yourself or the situation. Now here's a tricky one. Sometimes blind spots can hide behind our strengths. Yeah, you heard that right. Those things you're really proud of, the traits you think are your best qualities, they might be hiding some blind spots. For example, maybe you pride yourself on being super independent. That's great, right? But could it be that this independence is actually keeping you from asking for help when you need it, or from letting others get close to you? Our strengths can become weaknesses if we lean on them too hard, and that's prime territory for blind spots to set up camp. All right, now that we've talked about some signs to look out for, let's get practical. I want to share a simple but powerful exercise with you. I call it the mirror test, and it's a great way to start uncovering those hidden blind spots. Don't worry, you won't need any special equipment, just an open mind and a willingness to look at yourself honestly. Here's how it works. Find a quiet place where you won't be disturbed for about 15 minutes. Sit comfortably and take a few deep breaths to center yourself. Now imagine you're sitting in front of a big mirror. But this isn't just any mirror. It's a magical mirror that can show you the truth about yourself, even the parts you usually can't see. As you sit in front of this imaginary mirror, ask yourself these questions. What am I not seeing about myself? What truths am I avoiding? What patterns keep showing up in my life? Don't try to force the answers. Just sit with the questions and see what comes up. You might be surprised at what bubbles to the surface when you give yourself the space to really look. Now, I'll be honest with you. This exercise can be uncomfortable. You might find thoughts or feelings coming up that you'd rather not deal with. That's okay. In fact, it's more than okay. It's a good sign. Those uncomfortable feelings are often pointing right at your blind spots. The key is to approach whatever comes up with curiosity rather than judgment. You're not here to criticize yourself, just to observe and learn. As you do this exercise, you might find that certain memories come up, or you might notice physical sensations in your body. Pay attention to all of it. Our bodies often know things our minds aren't ready to admit, so those physical clues can be really valuable. Maybe you feel a tightness in your chest when you think about a certain relationship, or a heaviness in your stomach when you consider your job. These physical sensations can be great clues pointing towards blind spots. Remember, this isn't about beating yourself up or finding all your flaws. It's about expanding your self-awareness, about seeing yourself more clearly and completely. Every blind spot you uncover is an opportunity for growth, a chance to become more fully yourself. So approach this exercise with a spirit of self-love and compassion. You're doing important work here, and it's okay if it feels challenging. Here's a tip. Don't just do this exercise once and call it a day. Make it a regular practice. Maybe you do it once a week, or even daily if you're feeling ambitious. The more you do it, the more you'll uncover. It's like peeling an onion. There are always more layers to explore. And don't be surprised if different things come up each time you do this exercise. We're complex beings, and our blind spots can shift and change over time. What you discover today might be different from what you uncover next week or next month. That's all part of the journey of self-discovery. As you make this a regular practice, you might start to notice changes in your daily life. You might catch yourself in the middle of a pattern you've just become aware of, or you might find yourself reacting differently to situations that used to trigger you. These are all signs that you're making progress. that you're shining light into those previously dark corners of yourself. Now that we've talked about how to start identifying your blind spots, let's dive a little deeper into why they're such a big deal. Why do these hidden areas have so much power over us? Well, it all comes down to awareness. You can't change what you can't see, right? And that's exactly what blind spots do. They keep us from seeing parts of ourselves or our behavior clearly. Think about it like this. Imagine you're trying to navigate a maze, but there are parts of the maze that are invisible to you. You keep bumping into walls you can't see, taking wrong turns without realizing it. That's what life with blind spots is like. You're trying your best to move forward, to grow and evolve, but there are these invisible obstacles tripping you up along the way. One of the biggest ways blind spots hold us back is by keeping us stuck in old patterns. We all have habits and behaviors that we've developed over the years. Some of these serve us well, but others, not so much. The problem is, when these not-so-helpful patterns are hidden in our blind spots, we can't see them clearly enough to change them. So we keep repeating the same behaviors, making the same mistakes, and wondering why we're not getting different results. Here's another thing about blind spots. They're often protected by our ego. You see, our ego's job is to keep us safe and comfortable. And sometimes it decides that keeping us blind to certain truths is the best way to do that. It's like the ego throws a big sheet over parts of ourselves, hiding them from view. Nothing to see here, it says, even when there's actually a lot we could learn from looking under that sheet. This is why it can be so uncomfortable when someone points out one of our blind spots. It feels like a threat to our ego, to the image we have of ourselves. That's why we might get defensive or angry. Our ego is jumping in to protect us from a truth it thinks we're not ready to handle. But here's the thing. While our ego might think it's protecting us, it's actually holding us back. It's keeping us small, keeping us from growing into our full potential. When we stay blind to parts of ourselves, we miss out on opportunities for growth, healing, and transformation. Let's talk about how blind spots affect our relationships. We don't exist in isolation, right? We're constantly interacting with others, friends, family, colleagues, partners. And our blind spots don't just impact us. They ripple out and affect all these relationships too. For example, let's say you have a blind spot around expressing your needs. You think you're being easygoing and low maintenance by never asking for what you want. But in reality, you're setting yourself up for resentment and your partners up for failure. They can't meet needs they don't know about, right? So you end up feeling unsatisfied and they end up feeling like they can never get it right, all because of a blind spot. Or maybe your blind spot is around control. You don't realize how much you try to manage and direct everything around you. In your mind, you're just being helpful and organized. But to others, you might come across as bossy or untrusting. This blind spot could be putting strain on your relationships without you even realizing it. Now, I don't want you to feel discouraged. Yes, blind spots can hold us back, but here's the flip side. Every blind spot is also an opportunity for tremendous growth. Each one is like a wrapped gift, just waiting to be opened. Inside, you'll find new insights about yourself, chances to heal old wounds, and opportunities to show up more fully in your life. When we start to uncover and work with our blind spots, amazing things can happen. Relationships that were strained can suddenly flow more easily. Goals that seemed out of reach can become attainable. We can find ourselves moving through the world with more ease, more joy, more authenticity. And here's something really beautiful. As we do this work on ourselves, we naturally inspire others to do the same. It's like we're giving permission to everyone around us to look at their own blind spots, to grow and evolve. In this way, our personal growth becomes a gift not just to ourselves, but to the whole world. As we wrap up this section, I want you to remember that uncovering your blind spots is a journey, not a destination. It's not about reaching some perfect state where you have no more blind spots. That's not realistic, and honestly, it wouldn't be very interesting. The joy is in the journey, in the constant unfolding and discovery of who you are. This journey of self-discovery is one of the most important and rewarding journeys you can take in this life. It's not always easy, and there will be times when it feels challenging or uncomfortable. But I promise you, it's worth it. Every blind spot you uncover, every old pattern you change, brings you one step closer to living as your true, authentic self. So as we move forward, I encourage you to approach this process with curiosity and compassion. Be gentle with yourself as you uncover new truths. Celebrate each discovery, each moment of growth. And remember, you're not alone on this journey. We're all in this together, all of us stumbling and learning and growing, one blind spot at a time. In the next section, we're going to talk about some common spiritual blind spots that many people face. You might recognize some of these in yourself, and that's okay. Remember, awareness is the first step towards change. So let's dive in and see what we can uncover together. Certainly. I'll continue with the remaining sections of the outline and add a conclusion. Here's the continuation of the script. Now that we've talked about how to spot our blind spots and why they matter, let's dive into some common ones. Remember, if you recognize yourself in any of these, don't worry. We all have blind spots, and recognizing them is the first step to growth. First up, let's talk about the blind spot of judgment. This is a big one that many of us struggle with. We might think we're open-minded and accepting, but then find ourselves quickly judging others for their choices or behaviors. Maybe you find yourself looking down on people who don't share your spiritual beliefs, or feeling superior to those who haven't awakened yet. This judgment often comes from a place of insecurity or fear, but it can really hold us back on our spiritual journey. Another common blind spot is spiritual bypassing. This is when we use spiritual ideas or practices to avoid dealing with difficult emotions or life situations. It might look like always focusing on the positive and refusing to acknowledge pain or struggle. Or maybe it's using phrases like, "everything happens for a reason," to avoid really sitting with and processing tough experiences. While positivity is great, true spiritual growth involves facing all aspects of life, including the challenging ones. Then there's the blind spot of attachment to identity. This one's tricky because it can hide behind our spiritual practices. Maybe you've built an identity around being a spiritual person, and you cling to certain behaviors or beliefs because they reinforce this identity. But true spirituality is about letting go of fixed identities and being open to constant growth and change. Let's talk about another common blind spot: spiritual ego. This is when our ego co-opts our spiritual journey, turning it into a way to feel special or superior. Signs of spiritual ego might include constantly talking about your spiritual experiences, looking down on less spiritual people, or feeling like you have all the answers. Remember, true spirituality often involves more humility, not less. Another blind spot to watch out for is the illusion of control. Many of us have a deep-seated belief that if we just do everything right, meditate enough, think positive thoughts, follow all the spiritual rules, we can control what happens in our lives. But life has a way of reminding us that we're not in control. True spiritual growth often involves learning to surrender and go with the flow, rather than trying to micromanage the universe. And let's not forget about the blind spot of perfectionism. This one can be especially sneaky in spiritual circles. We might think that to be truly spiritual, we need to be perfectly peaceful, always loving, never angry. But this kind of perfectionism just sets us up for failure and self-judgment. Real spirituality embraces all of our human messiness and imperfections. As we talk about these common blind spots, I want to remind you of something important. Having blind spots doesn't make you a bad person or a spiritual failure. It makes you human. We all have these blind spots, and they're not something to beat yourself up about. Instead, try to approach them with curiosity and compassion. When you notice one of these blind spots in yourself, take a moment to thank yourself for becoming aware of it. That awareness is a gift, a stepping stone on your path of growth. Then, instead of judging yourself, try to get curious. Where did this blind spot come from? How has it been serving you? What might be possible if you let it go? Remember, the goal isn't to eliminate all your blind spots overnight. That's not realistic or even desirable. Instead, the aim is to gradually become more aware, more open, more willing to look at all parts of yourself with love and acceptance. This is the true path of spiritual growth. Now that we've identified some common blind spots, you might be wondering, okay, so what do I do about them? Don't worry, I've got you covered. Let's talk about some practical steps you can take to start healing and growing beyond your blind spots. First things first, practice self-awareness. This might sound obvious, but it's the foundation of all growth. Start paying attention to your thoughts, feelings, and reactions throughout the day. When you notice a pattern or a strong reaction, pause and ask yourself, what's really going on here? This simple act of pausing and questioning can be incredibly powerful. Another powerful tool is journaling. Set aside some time each day to write freely about your thoughts and experiences. Don't censor yourself or try to write anything spiritual. Just let it flow. Over time, you might start to notice patterns or insights emerging that can shed light on your blind spots. Meditation is another fantastic tool for uncovering blind spots. As you sit in silence, observing your thoughts and feelings without judgment, you create space for hidden aspects of yourself to surface. Don't worry if your mind wanders. That's normal. Just gently bring your attention back to your breath each time you notice you've gotten lost in thought. Here's a big one. Be open to feedback from others. Often, the people around us can see our blind spots more clearly than we can. Now, this doesn't mean you have to agree with everything anyone says about you. But if you notice multiple people pointing out the same thing, or if someone whose opinion you trust offers you some feedback, try to listen with an open mind. Consider finding a spiritual mentor or joining a supportive spiritual community. Sometimes we need others to mirror back to us what we can't see ourselves. A good mentor or community can provide that mirror, offering insights and gentle challenges that help us grow. And don't underestimate the power of professional help. A therapist or counselor can be an invaluable ally in uncovering and healing blind spots, especially if you find yourself stuck in patterns you can't seem to break on your own. Remember, healing your blind spots doesn't have to involve grand gestures or complete life overhauls. Often, it's the small, consistent actions that make the biggest difference. Maybe it's taking 3 deep breaths before responding in a situation that usually triggers you. Or perhaps it's practicing saying no when you'd usually say yes out of a need to please others. One powerful practice is to end each day with a self-reflection. Ask yourself, what did I learn about myself today? Where did I react strongly? Where did I judge others or myself? This nightly check-in can help you stay accountable to your growth and celebrate your progress. And speaking of celebration, don't forget to acknowledge your growth along the way. Healing blind spots is challenging work, and you deserve to recognize your efforts. Each time you notice a blind spot or choose to respond differently to an old trigger, take a moment to appreciate yourself. This positive reinforcement can help motivate you to keep going on your journey of growth. As we near the end of our journey together, let's talk about what's waiting for you on the other side of this work. Because make no mistake, while uncovering and healing your blind spots can be challenging, the rewards are immense. When you start to shine a light on your blind spots and work through them, you'll likely notice some big changes in your life. First, you might find that your relationships start to improve. As you become more self-aware and authentic, you'll naturally attract deeper, more meaningful connections with others. You might find it easier to communicate your needs, set healthy boundaries, and truly listen to others. You might also notice a greater sense of inner peace. When we're operating with big blind spots, there's often an underlying tension or anxiety that we might not even be aware of. As you uncover and heal these hidden areas, that tension starts to dissolve. You might find yourself feeling more at ease, more comfortable in your own skin. Another beautiful outcome of this work is increased compassion, both for yourself and for others. As you learn to look at your own blind spots with kindness and understanding, you'll naturally extend that same compassion to others. You'll start to see that everyone is on their own journey, dealing with their own blind spots, and this understanding can lead to more patience and empathy in your interactions. Here's something really exciting to consider. As you do this work on yourself, you're not just changing your own life, you're contributing to positive change in the world around you. Every time you choose awareness over reactivity, every time you respond with compassion instead of judgment, you're putting more love and consciousness into the world. Think about it like this. Your growth creates a ripple effect. As you become more aware and compassionate, you inspire others to do the same. Your relationships improve, which positively impacts the lives of those around you. You show up differently at work, in your community, in the world. And that energy affects everyone you interact with. And on a spiritual level, as you raise your own consciousness by working through your blind spots, you're contributing to the elevation of collective consciousness. You're doing your part to create a more awake, more compassionate world. How beautiful is that? The journey continues. As we wrap up our time together, I want to remind you that this journey of uncovering and healing your blind spots is ongoing. It's not about reaching some perfect end state where you have no more blind spots. Rather, it's about cultivating a lifelong practice of self-awareness and growth. There will always be more to discover about yourself, more ways to grow and evolve, and that's a good thing. It means life will continue to be an adventure of self-discovery. So approach this journey with curiosity and excitement. Who knows what amazing things you'll uncover about yourself along the way? Remember, every step you take in shining a light on your blind spots is a step towards living a more authentic, fulfilling life. It's a step towards becoming more fully yourself. And the world needs you, the real you, in all your beautiful, imperfect, ever-evolving glory. We've covered a lot of ground today, haven't we? We've explored what spiritual blind spots are, how to spot them, why they matter, and how to start healing them. But really, we've only scratched the surface. The journey of self-discovery and spiritual growth is a lifelong adventure, full of twists and turns, challenges and triumphs. As you move forward from here, I invite you to carry the spirit of curiosity and self-reflection with you. Remember, every blind spot you uncover is an opportunity to know yourself more deeply, to grow, to show up more fully in your life and in the world. Don't be discouraged if you find this work challenging at times. It's normal to feel uncomfortable as you shine a light on parts of yourself you haven't seen before. But I promise you, the discomfort is temporary, and the growth you'll experience is so worth it. And remember, you're not alone on this journey. We're all in this together, all of us stumbling, learning, and growing. So be gentle with yourself, celebrate your progress, and don't hesitate to reach out for support when you need it. As you go about your day today, I encourage you to stay aware. Notice your reactions, your judgments, your patterns. Get curious about what might be hiding in your blind spots, and most importantly, approach yourself with love and compassion every step of the way. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of spiritual blind spots. I truly believe that this work, the work of becoming more self-aware, more authentic, more fully ourselves, is some of the most important work we can do in this lifetime. Not just for ourselves, but for the healing and evolution of our entire world. So go forth with courage, with curiosity, with compassion. Your journey of growth and self-discovery awaits. And who knows, the next amazing thing you discover might be hiding right now in one of your blind spots, just waiting for you to shine a light on it. Until next time, keep shining your light, keep growing, keep evolving. The world needs your unique gifts, your authentic self, and remember, every step you take towards greater self-awareness is a step towards a more conscious, more compassionate world for all of us. Thank you, and may your journey be filled with beautiful discoveries.